My wife turned our bedroom into a 5 minutes comedy special. I quietly dismantled her secret debts, forced a postnup, and walked away with dignity. The laughter hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't the laughter itself, it was what caused it. Standing in the kitchen of our friend's house, just around the corner from the living room where everyone had gathered, I froze mid-step. My wife's voice carried clearly through the doorway. It's like watching those 5-minute comedy specials. You think something good might happen, but then it's over before you even get comfortable. More laughter erupted as she continued. And the worst part, he thinks he deserves a standing ovation every time. I set down my empty glass on the counter. The house was packed with our mutual friends celebrating a birthday, people I'd known for years who were now laughing at my most intimate moments. I stepped back quietly, processing what I had just heard. For 6 years, I'd built a life with this woman, supported her career changes, paid off her student loans, and never once complained about her spending habits. Even when her shopping addiction started draining our savings, I simply worked harder. I became a partner at my firm 3 years ahead of schedule because I never said no to extra projects or weekend work. Instead of confronting her immediately, I walked outside to the backyard, a strategic retreat. My father always taught me that reacting from emotion is what weak men do. Strong men calculate. As I stood there looking at the night sky, something crystallized within me. This wasn't just about humiliation. It was about respect. Through the window, I could see her still holding court, red wine in hand. The same wine from my personal collection that I had brought as a gift for our host. The dress she wore cost nearly $2,000. The jewelry around her neck was an anniversary present, all paid for by the man she was now turning into the punchline of a bad joke. I checked our joint account on my phone. Another large withdrawal yesterday, probably for tonight's outfit or another impulsive purchase she'd hide in the back of her closet. Financial irresponsibility had become her signature move, one I had tolerated far too long. Returning to the party, I wore a mask of calm indifference. I smiled, laughed at jokes, and even refilled her wine glass when it emptied. Not once did I show that anything had changed, but everything had. During the ride home, she chatted about the party, complaining that the food wasn't up to standard and speculating about who might be having affairs. I nodded at appropriate intervals while mentally cataloging every financial entanglement between us, joint checking and savings, 3 credit cards, the mortgage, investment accounts, all connected and all vulnerable. At home, she kissed me lazily before heading upstairs, slightly drunk and completely unaware of what was coming. I waited until I heard the shower running before opening my laptop. The first transfer took less than 5 minutes. By morning, half of our liquid assets would be secured in an account she couldn't access. This wasn't just about money. This was about consequences. If she thought our bedroom was a comedy club, I would ensure her financial situation became a horror story. And unlike her jokes, no one would be laughing. As I closed the laptop, I felt no anger, only clarity. The woman upstairs had no idea. She'd just performed her final show at my expense. The next act would be directed by me, and I wasn't interested in comedy. I preferred tragedies with powerful lessons about respect. The irony wasn't lost on me. While she mocked what happened in 5 minutes in our bedroom, it had taken me exactly 4 minutes to begin dismantling her financial security. Tomorrow would bring questions, but I was prepared with answers that would make her regret ever turning our private life into public entertainment. Morning arrived with her none the wiser. While she slept, I'd spent hours dissecting our financial entanglement. What I discovered turned my calculated response into something much colder. This wasn't just about one joke at a party. This was systematic. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while she showered. Normally, I'd never check it. Privacy had always been a cornerstone of our relationship, or so I thought. The notification preview showed a message from her closest friend, still laughing about what you said last night. Your poor husband. The 4-digit passcode hadn't changed since our 2nd anniversary. Inside her phone lay a treasure trove of betrayal. Group chats dedicated to dissecting our intimate moments, screenshots of private conversations we'd had, voice messages where she mimicked my expressions and sounds during our most vulnerable moments. Most disturbing were the timestamps. This hadn't started recently. The oldest messages dated back nearly 2 years. 2 years of being the unwitting star of her comedy routine. I set her phone down exactly as I found it and turned my attention to the real investigation. Our financial records told an equally disturbing story. Credit card statements revealed purchases I'd never seen, designer clothes hidden in storage units, expensive meals on days she claimed to be working late, hotel charges in our own city. 3 additional credit cards existed in her name that I'd never known about. The combined debt was nearly $40,000. The minimum payments were being made from our joint account, my income essentially funding her secret life. The home office yielded more discoveries. Inside her desk drawer, beneath tax documents, I found bank statements for a personal account, an account funded by periodic transfers from our joint savings, disguised as automatic investments, except these investments never reached our portfolio. They reached her secret fund. I photographed everything meticulously before returning each item exactly as I'd found it. My legal background made me precise. This wasn't about emotion anymore. This was about executing a flawless extraction. When she finally came downstairs, hair perfectly styled and wearing an outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage, I greeted her with coffee and a smile. She complained about a mild hangover while scrolling through her phone, probably sharing more intimate details with her audience. "Big presentation today," I mentioned casually. "Might be home late." She barely looked up. "Don't worry about dinner, meeting the girls anyway." Of course she was. Another opportunity to entertain at my expense. But today's performance would come with an unexpected price tag. Instead of heading to the office, I visited my bank, then my lawyer. By noon, I'd opened 3 new individual accounts, transferred additional assets, and begun the process of financial disentanglement. My lawyer advised caution, suggesting a less aggressive approach. I thanked him for his concern but proceeded anyway. Next came the credit monitoring service. I set up alerts for any new accounts or credit inquiries. Then the investment broker, where I changed access protocols and required dual authentication for any significant withdrawals or changes. The storage unit was my final stop before returning to work. The key had been hidden in her jewelry box. Inside, I found not just clothes with tags still attached, but receipts for cash withdrawals, a prepaid phone, and a small notebook detailing loans from friends. Apparently, her spending had exceeded even her secret account. By evening, 80% of our shared assets had been secured. The remaining 20% would serve as bait. I needed to see exactly how she would react when the financial well began to run dry. Would she come clean about her hidden debts? Would she admit to the mockery she'd been subjecting me to? Somehow I doubted it, but that was fine. Comedy relies on timing, and horror builds through escalation. Her financial horror show was just beginning its first act, and unlike her 5-minute jokes, this performance would have a much more satisfying conclusion. The next week unfolded with surgical precision. Each day, I implemented another phase of my plan while maintaining an impeccable facade of normalcy. The beauty of strategic revenge lies not in immediate gratification, but in careful, methodical execution. I scheduled a routine checkup with our financial advisor, making sure to mention that my wife was too busy to attend. He raised concerns about recent withdrawals from our joint savings. I feigned surprise and asked him to prepare a comprehensive report. When it arrived via encrypted email 2 days later, it provided official documentation of every suspicious transaction. Next came the credit cards. Rather than canceling them outright, I requested new cards due to suspicious activity. The replacements would be sent to my office address. For the shared cards, I reduced credit limits to just above their current balances, ensuring any significant new purchases would be declined. At home, I continued playing the oblivious husband. We attended a dinner party where, once again, she found opportunities to entertain at my expense. This time, I excused myself to take a work call and recorded her performance with my phone in my pocket. The audio quality was perfect, her voice crystal clear as she detailed how I always asked if it was good for her too with such desperate hope in my eyes. The laughter from our friends felt different now, not because it hurt less, but because I knew exactly how this story would end. By midweek, I'd moved our investment portfolio into a temporary holding structure that required dual authorization for any withdrawals. I adjusted our automatic bill payments to come from my new personal account, effectively removing her access to our household operating funds. The weekend brought the first sign that she'd noticed something amiss. Her favorite boutique called to inform her that her credit card had been declined. "There must be some mistake," she said, pacing the kitchen. "Can you call the bank?" "Of course," I replied, concern perfectly measured in my voice. I made the call, put it on speaker, and listened as the representative explained the card had reached its limit. "That's impossible," she insisted. "We never carry balances." I raised an eyebrow. There must be fraud or something. I nodded sympathetically. I'll look into it tomorrow. That night, she received a text from one of her friends about a spa day. I later learned the friend had tried to charge the booking to my wife's card. A common arrangement between them, apparently, only to have it declined. The small humiliations were beginning to accumulate. Monday morning, she attempted to schedule her monthly salon appointment only to have another card declined. By afternoon, she was growing visibly anxious, checking her phone frequently, attempting to access our online banking. Something weird is happening with the accounts, she mentioned casually over dinner. I can't seem to log in. Really? Let me check. I pulled out my phone, entered my credentials, and showed her the screen. Works fine for me. Maybe your password expired. Maybe, she said, eyes narrowing slightly. Can you transfer me some money until I figure it out? The salon needs a deposit. How much? I asked. Just $2,000. The usual. $2,000 for a deposit. The usual. Each revelation reinforced the righteousness of my actions. Sure thing, I replied, making the transfer to her Venmo account, the one I knew she checked regularly. What she didn't know was that I'd scheduled an automatic reversal for midnight. By Wednesday, panic had set in. 3 declined cards, no access to our joint accounts, urgent text from creditors I'd never heard of. She maintained her composure admirably, but the cracks were showing. The designer outfit from the previous week had been replaced by clothes I actually recognized. Her tone when speaking to friends on the phone had lost its arrogance. Thursday brought the first direct confrontation. What's going on with our money? She demanded, cornering me in the kitchen before work. I looked at her with practiced confusion. What do you mean? Everything's locked or maxed out. Did you do something? I set down my coffee cup slowly. I've made some adjustments to improve our financial security. Been meaning to tell you about it. Without discussing it with me first, I let several seconds of silence hang between us before responding. Interesting that you're concerned about discussions before actions. Speaking of which, I've been meaning to ask you about something. Her expression shifted from outrage to caution. What? How long have you been entertaining our friends with stories about our private life? The blood drained from her face. Her financial horror show had just introduced its first major plot twist, and we were still only in Act 2. Her face cycled through emotions rapidly, shock, guilt, defiance, finally settling on feigned innocence. What are you talking about? Her voice wavered slightly. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I maintained eye contact, my voice steady and low. The 5-minute comedy specials, the standing ovation jokes, the detailed reenactments of our most intimate moments for your friends' entertainment. She attempted a dismissive laugh. It was just harmless girl talk. Everyone does it. Everyone records their partner's private moments and shares them in group chats. Everyone mimics their husband's expressions and sounds for laughs. That's what everyone does. Her eyes widened. She hadn't expected specifics. The calculated risk I'd taken in revealing partial knowledge was paying off. She didn't know how much I knew, which meant she couldn't effectively lie or minimize. You went through my phone. Anger replaced her shock, a predictable deflection tactic. Interesting. That's your concern. Not the betrayal, not the humiliation, just the fact that I discovered it. I leaned against the counter, deliberately casual. And to answer your earlier question about the finances, yes, I've made some changes. Consider it a comedy of my own. She stepped closer, voice lowering to that manipulative tone she used when trying to regain control. Look, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. It was stupid, meaningless jokes. Exactly, stupid and meaningless. Just like your access to my financial resources from now on. The mask of contrition vanished instantly. You can't just cut me off. Half of everything is legally mine. Technically, yes. But accessing it might prove difficult, especially when I present evidence of financial infidelity to go alongside the personal kind. Her face paled. What are you talking about? The storage unit was a nice touch. Very organized, though. So you might want to find a better hiding place for the key next time. She sank into a kitchen chair, strategy visibly shifting. This is insane. We need to talk reasonably about this. I agree. Let's start with the $40,000 in credit card debt you've been hiding. Or perhaps the separate bank account funded by our joint savings. Which comedy routine should we begin with? Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it reflexively, then quickly away. I gestured toward it. Go ahead. Check if another card's been declined. Or maybe it's one of your friends wondering why the spa day was canceled. Audience members can be so demanding when the show stops unexpectedly. She ignored the phone, trying desperately to regain control of the conversation. You're overreacting. Everyone vents about their partners sometimes. There's venting, and then there's what you did. I checked my watch deliberately. I need to get to work. We'll continue this discussion tonight, although, fair warning, your girls' night out might need rescheduling. I've temporarily frozen the account you use for those expenses. Her expression hardened. You can't control me with money. I laughed genuinely for the first time in days. I'm not controlling you. I'm simply removing myself as your unwitting financial sponsor. You're free to do whatever you want with your own money. The magnitude of her situation was finally dawning on her. No access to joint funds, credit cards maxed or frozen, secret accounts discovered. Her carefully constructed financial castle was crumbling. What do you want from me? Her voice had lost all its earlier confidence. At this moment, nothing. I'm still deciding what, if anything, this relationship is worth salvaging. I gathered my briefcase and walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and I'll be staying late at the office. Don't wait up. At work, I received 17 text messages and 9 calls from her. I answered none. Instead, I finalized the next phase. My lawyer had prepared documents transferring our investment accounts into a trust structure that would require significant legal effort to access. Not impossible. That would be illegal, but certainly difficult and time-consuming. By evening, I knew she would have contacted at least one of her friends for financial help. She'd also likely discovered that the $40,000 in credit card debt was now due in full. I'd contacted each creditor, informing them that I was disputing the authorized user status on accounts opened without my knowledge. When I finally returned home near midnight, the house was dark except for a single light in the living room. She sat waiting, eyes red from crying but expression calculating. We need to talk, she said. We do, I agreed, setting down my briefcase. But unlike your comedy routines, this conversation won't be brief. And unlike your financial habits, it will be completely transparent. Her financial horror story was reaching its climax. And the true terror for her wasn't what I'd already done. It was the realization that I held every card in this game she'd unwittingly started. The living room became our negotiation table. She sat on the couch. I took the armchair opposite. The physical distance between us perfectly mirrored our emotional state. First, let me be clear, I began. This isn't a discussion about reconciliation. This is me informing you of consequences already set in motion. She leaned forward. You're making a mistake. We can work through this. Like you work through your credit card statements before hiding them. Or like you worked through which parts of our private life would make the best entertainment for your friends. Her strategy shifted instantly to tears. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but destroying our marriage over some stupid jokes and shopping. This isn't about jokes or shopping, I interrupted. This is about respect and trust, both of which you've systematically destroyed. I removed a folder from my briefcase and placed it on the coffee table between us. Inside were printouts of her text conversations, financial statements, and photographs of the storage unit contents. Tomorrow morning, we're meeting with our entire friend group for brunch. I've already arranged it. Confusion replaced her tears. Why would we? Because I'm tired of being the only one not in on the joke. Since our intimate life has been their entertainment for years, it seems only fair they should be equally entertained by your financial escapades. The color drained from her face. You wouldn't. I already have. I slid my phone across the table, showing the group chat I'd created earlier that day. The message was simple: brunch tomorrow. Important announcement regarding our future. Details to follow. This is cruel, she whispered. Cruel would be reading their text responses about how excited they are for more drama. Apparently, your audiences have come to expect regular entertainment at my expense. She stood suddenly. I won't go. You can't make me. True, but I'll still be there with these documents explaining exactly why our marriage is ending. Your absence will simply make you look worse. She paced the room, mind visibly racing for escape routes. What do you want from me? Money. I'll pay back everything. With what? Your secret accounts are empty. Your credit cards are maxed. Your friends are already declining your requests for loans. Her shocked expression confirmed my suspicion. Yes, I know about those too. Turns out your friend values her husband's financial stability more than your friendship. The crushing weight of her situation finally broke her composure. Real tears now, not the calculated ones from earlier. "You've been planning this for how long?" she asked. "Less time than you've been mocking me behind my back." She collapsed back onto the couch. "Just tell me what you want." I opened the folder and removed a document. "This is a postnuptial agreement. It outlines financial separation moving forward. You keep your earnings. I keep mine. Joint assets remain frozen until divorce proceedings determine distribution." Divorce? We're really there. We've been there since I heard you comparing our intimate life to a 5-minute comedy special. The only difference is that now you know it too. Her phone buzzed again, another friend confirming tomorrow's brunch. The noose of social consequences was tightening. And if I sign this, then tomorrow's announcement changes? Instead of revealing your financial infidelity, I simply announce our separation, amicable, mutual, private. Relief flickered across her face. That's it? No. You also transfer ownership of the luxury items purchased with joint funds back to me. Designer clothes, jewelry, handbags, all of it. That's thousands of dollars. $47,000 to be precise. Less than the credit card debt you hid, but a start. She stared at the document, desperation mounting. "I need time to think." "You have until morning, 10 a.m. specifically. When I walk into that restaurant, I'll either be carrying this agreement with your signature or that folder with your secrets." I stood to leave the room. No further discussion needed. "Wait," she called out. "How will I pay my bills? My half of the mortgage. You can't just leave me destitute." I turned back slowly. Interesting concern from someone who had no qualms about potentially leaving me financially ruined through hidden debt. But to answer your question, you have a job. Use your income for necessities rather than luxuries. Novel concept, I know. And the debt, the cards in my name, not my problem. Comedy has consequences. Horror, even more so. As I walked upstairs, I heard her frantically calling someone, probably searching for legal advice or financial rescue. It wouldn't matter. The agreement had been meticulously crafted by the best attorney in the city. Every clause airtight, every consequence calculated. By morning, she would realize that she had exactly 2 options: sign and retain some dignity, or refuse and lose everything. Money, reputation, and social standing. Either way, her 5-minute comedy routine had come to its final punchline, and the audience wouldn't be laughing this time. Morning arrived with decisive clarity. I'd slept in the guest room, awakening refreshed despite the circumstances. Checking my phone, I found the restaurant had confirmed our large reservation. Everyone would be there, eager for whatever announcement warranted a group gathering. Downstairs, she sat at the kitchen island, the postnuptial agreement in front of her. Her appearance was startling, no makeup, hair pulled back carelessly, wearing clothes I recognized from years ago. The carefully crafted image she maintained had crumbled overnight. "I spoke with an attorney," she said without preamble. "He says this agreement heavily favors you." "Of course it does." I poured myself coffee. "That's the point of consequences. They're not meant to be equitable. They're meant to be instructive. He advised me not to sign." I nodded, unsurprised. "Understandable advice. What's your decision?" She pushed the document toward me, already signed. Bold choice. I retrieved the folder from my briefcase. "I respect your right to make it, even if I question the wisdom." "Wait." Her voice cracked. "There has to be another way. Some compromise." Compromise was available yesterday. Today we have deadlines. Her expression hardened. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? My humiliation." "No more than you enjoyed sharing intimate details of our life for laughs." I checked my watch. "We need to leave in 20 minutes. I suggest changing into something appropriate for a public appearance." "I'm not going." "Again, your choice. But consider what narrative that creates when I explain your absence." She stared at me, searching for any sign of weakness or hesitation. Finding none, she grabbed the agreement and signed again with angry slashing strokes, though it was already done. "There. Happy now?" I reviewed the signature, comparing it against known examples I'd brought. Authentic. I nodded and placed it in my briefcase. "Get dressed, but leave the designer items. Those revert to me under paragraph 12. You can't be serious." "Deadly serious. Every luxury item purchased with joint funds is listed in the appendix. Your signature just transferred ownership." Half an hour later, we sat in my car outside the restaurant. She wore a simple dress I barely recognized, probably purchased before our marriage. No expensive jewelry, no designer handbag. A physical manifestation of her new financial reality. "What exactly are you going to say in there?" she asked, fear evident in her voice. "That depends entirely on you." "What does that mean?" "It means your performance matters. If you try to generate sympathy or paint me as the villain, I'll correct the record immediately with documentation. If you accept responsibility and maintain dignity, this ends quietly." Inside, our friends greeted us with curious expressions. 8 people who had been audience members to her comedy routines about our private life. 8 people about to witness the finale. Once seated, expectant faces turned toward us. The moment of truth had arrived. I cleared my throat. "Thank you all for coming. We have an announcement to make." She tensed beside me, hands gripping her napkin. "After careful consideration, we've decided to separate." Gasps and concerned murmurs rippled around the table. Several of her closest friends shot her questioning looks. The ones who'd been most entertained by her stories now seemed genuinely surprised by the consequences. One spoke up. "But why? You always seemed so perfect together." I turned to my soon-to-be ex-wife. "Would you like to explain, or should I?" The challenge hung in the air between us. Her response would determine whether this ended with dignity or destruction. For several seconds she said nothing, calculation visible behind her eyes. Finally she spoke. "We've grown apart. Some differences can't be reconciled." Simple, vague, dignified. She'd chosen wisely. I nodded in agreement. "We hope you'll respect our privacy during this transition." Conversation eventually resumed, though considerably subdued. Her friends kept shooting her concerned glances. Questions would come later, in private texts and calls. Questions she would now have to navigate carefully, knowing what evidence I possessed. As we prepared to leave, I briefly stepped away to speak with the waiter, ensuring the bill was charged to my personal card. When I returned, I overheard her closest friend whispering, "What really happened? This is so sudden." Her response was telling. Sometimes you don't fully appreciate something until you lose it. In the car, silence dominated until we reached home. As she moved to exit, I spoke one final time. "The movers will arrive tomorrow for my things. I've arranged for a temporary apartment. The mortgage and utilities are paid through next month, giving you time to make arrangements." She turned, surprise evident. "You're leaving? Not kicking me out?" "Contrary to the character assessment you've shared with our friends, I'm not vindictive, just consequential." "And after that, what happens to the house?" "It sells. We divide the proceeds as outlined in the agreement. You start your new life. I continue mine." Something shifted in her expression, the first genuine emotion I'd seen. Not manipulation, not calculation, realization. "I really messed up, didn't I? Spectacularly. Is there any chance?" "No." I cut her off gently but firmly. Some performances can't be walked back. Some jokes leave permanent damage. I watched as she entered the house we'd shared for years. Now just a physical structure holding memories that no longer brought comfort. The comedy had ended. The horror show had played its course. What remained was simply the quiet aftermath of consequences. As I drove away, I felt neither victory nor vindication, only certainty that I'd maintained my dignity in the face of disrespect. The man she'd mocked for his 5-minute performances had orchestrated a flawless exit strategy in less than 7 days. The irony would have been amusing if it weren't so final. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. As I pulled away from the house for the last time, the morning sun was just beginning to burn off the fog that had settled over the city. The streets looked exactly the same as they had for the past 6 years, yet everything felt alien. The radio stayed off. I didn't need music. The silence was finally mine again. For the first few miles, I waited for something. Regret, triumph, emptiness, anything to rise up and claim me. But nothing came. There was only a strange, weightless calm, like the moment after you set down a burden you've carried so long you forgot you were allowed to put it down. I thought I would feel victorious. I had won, hadn't I? Every move perfectly executed, every consequence delivered with surgical precision. She had mocked me, betrayed me, bled our future dry for handbags and hotel rooms and the cheap dopamine of making her friends laugh at my expense. I had taken everything back, money, dignity, control, and walked away without raising my voice once. A flawless performance. But victory didn't taste like I expected. It tasted like nothing. Not bitter, not sweet. Just the faint metallic residue of adrenaline finally draining from the blood. Then, unexpectedly, grief arrived. Not for her, God, no, but for the version of me that had died somewhere along the way. The man who used to come home excited to see his wife. The one who worked 80-hour weeks without complaint because he believed sacrifice was the currency of love. The one who paid off her loans, carried her shopping bags, brought her coffee in bed, and still asked, with genuine hope in his eyes, if it had been good for her too. That man was gone. Murdered, really. And I had been the one holding the knife because the only way to survive was to kill the part of me that still believed. Love could be unconditional, when it was offered only on her terms. I pulled over on a quiet side street, rested my forehead against the steering wheel and let myself cry, not the loud, dramatic kind, just a slow leak of 6 years' worth of swallowed disappointment. I cried for the future we never had, for the children we never made, for the version of marriage I once thought was possible. I cried because I had finally become the strong, calculating man my father raised me to be, and I hated how easily it had come. When the tears stopped, I sat up and looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My eyes were red, but clearer than they'd been in years. For the first time since the night of that party, I recognized the man staring back. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't broken. He was simply done performing for an audience that never clapped for him. I started the car again and drove toward the new apartment. Small, bare, south-facing windows. The moving truck would arrive in 2 hours. I had kept only what was mine before her. My books, my grandfather's watch, the espresso machine I bought with my first bonus, a single framed photo of my parents on their wedding day, both of them laughing like they had just heard the best secret in the world. Everything else, the furniture we picked out together, the art she insisted on, the bed where I had been reduced to a 5-minute punchline, would be sold or donated. I didn't want souvenirs of a life built on quicksand. As the city unfolded in front of me, I understood something with a clarity that felt almost sacred. I wasn't walking away from a marriage. I was walking toward myself. The real tragedy wasn't that she had betrayed me. It was that I had betrayed myself for years by accepting it. I will never again confuse patience with self-respect. I will never again mistake generosity for permission to be used. I will never again measure my worth by how much suffering someone is willing to stop inflicting once they realize I can leave. The pain will fade. The money can be earned again. But the boundary I drew in those 7 days, the line that said this far and no further, will stay with me for the rest of my life. It is the most expensive thing I have ever built, and the only thing I will never regret paying for. Somewhere behind me, a woman is learning what life feels like when the safety net is removed. She will hate me for a while. Then, if she's lucky, she will understand, and if she's very lucky, she will one day thank the man who refused to let her destroy him quietly. But I won't be there to hear it. My performance is over, the stage lights are off, and for the first time in years, I am not waiting in the wings for someone else's cue. I am free. And freedom, I now know, doesn't roar, it doesn't gloat, it simply breathes, deep, steady, and entirely its own.